Good morning, good morning, good morning. It's Elizabeth Eleanor with Pause. How are you? I would love for you to jump in the chat and tell me how you're going. It's wet and drizzly and a bit cold here in Shell Cove, down south of New South Wales. So let's talk about relationship patterns, understanding your relationship patterns, and let's break down the cycle of the unconscious habits and behaviors that happen in these cycles, right? So I'd love for you to share with me in the chat, are you in a relationship, or are you someone that's looking to meet someone, right? This is a really pertinent time for this, for us to be talking about this, because I've got a friend, a woman that I know, don't know her that well. She's someone that I've known for quite a few years, and is I met her through a business training way back, and she lives in a different state to me. And Facebook is the way that everything looks all lovey-dovey and full of all sorts of beautiful experiences, right? And we always show the best parts on Facebook. And it looked like she was having a beautiful relationship, and I watched her get married just recently, maybe a couple of years now. It's been 2 years. So, hey Irene, love for everyone to say hi in the chat so I know that you're on. But this particular woman all of a sudden's on Facebook going, full of tears and life has fallen apart. And so I reached out to her because it was like something's going on that, that I can see isn't she doesn't want to talk about it on Facebook, but there was something going on. And she's just found out that her partner of, I think they've been together maybe 3 or 4 years, that he's been cheating on her for the last 18 months. And so I want to break this down, not this particular relationship, but behaviors and relationship patterns, because of our unconscious behaviors. Because if you haven't sorted out what's been going on and what's still stuck in your auric field, in your frequency from your childhood, potentially from past lives as well, and generational stuff that can come up, if you haven't cleared that stuff out of the way, then it's still going to manifest over and over and over. It's like a freaking little magnet that can't, you can, it feels weak, but you can pull away from it, but it's just going to spring you back if you haven't got rid of that, And so let's break this down. When we're in a position where, so for example, like if I'm going to, and she's not in this group, so I can, go a little bit wild here. Let me have a sip of my tea. I know this woman, and I know that she's had experiences like this before, where she's been in emotionally neglectful and abusive relationships, right? And I remember a friend of mine way back, she's a woman that I know, and I've known for 20 years. But when I first met her, I'd watch her go from one relationship, and before she could even breathe, she'd be in the next one, and each one of them was abusive and neglectful and cheating and all the things. And I remember saying after the third or fourth time, and I'd only met her, been with friends with her for about 2 years or something. I'm like, same story, different face. It's the same thing over and over and over again. And when are you going to stop and spend some time on looking where this pattern stems from and clearing it from the source of where it originates? Because if you don't clear up those little vibrational fields, then they just, as I said before, they just keep playing out over and over again. So your childhood, let's just go into this life, right? Your childhood, when we first start off, we're living in, a dysfunctional world. Is just the way it is, right? We're in the middle of a massive shift, but we have been in a broken world for a long, long time, right? Way before we were actually born on this planet, this place has been in dysfunction, and trying to find some sort of resolution and equilibrium for thousands and thousands of years, right? All designed and destined to get us to this thing that, like a lot of the historical religious books talk about, heaven on earth, nirvana, all of these, utopia, right? This beautiful place that's been destined and foretold in stories that have gone by, that we will be in an experience where we're in love and harmony and peace on the planet, right? And so with so many different versions of it, you've got to sort of go, there's some sort of essence of truth, right? And you can see that there's little signs coming. But we grew up in an experience where we were still in a broken society, right? A society that gives its power away outside of itself. Now, let's break that down and bring that down into the relationship. Because when you're in, if the world is like this, as above, so below, right? When the world is like this, and there's chaos and there's confusion and there's limitation, resistance, all of those things, then you bring that down into the individual that's living in a family environment. So your family environment is what was your everything. Everything that you saw as a little baby, you took in and absorbed it of, this is the way the world is, this is who I am in the world, and this is the way I need to function in the world to get by, right? So you make these decisions about the way to function. You decide that if I behave this way, I will be treated well, sometimes loved, sometimes praised, sometimes validated. If I behave this way, if I get good grades, if I'm of service, like if I'm a little girl and I'm being a good girl and I'm helping with cleaning the house, or if I'm helping cook the dinner, or if I'm sewing, if I'm whatever it might be, if I'm looking nice in a little pink dress, like all of these things, because most of us went, these days is a little bit different. Growing up these days, there's a little bit more freedom to be. But tell me in the chat, did you grow up having to look and behave a certain way? I know that I did, right? I was brought up, I was the only girl after 3 boys, and the third boy actually was a stillborn, right? So my mum was in emotional distress when she was pregnant with me. So when I came out, not only was I a girl, but I breathed, I cried, and I was alive. So I was classified as special, right? Special in my family was really hard. It wasn't something I was very impressed with. And Mum wanted me to be a pink girl. I had to be in pink dresses, and I had a pink bedroom, right? And I remember there's a story, like Mum often tells this story, a few different stories, right? But there was this one story of how, because she was a knitter, she used to knit, and she had won first place at the Royal Easter Show. It was a big deal. She made this big elaborate amazing, intricate knitting, this round, circular baby's blanket, and all the attire, like 3-piece, everything. And look, it was beautiful. It was beautiful. It was actually stolen. It was so good. And with my doll, my doll was the baby that was being demonstrated for the prize, right? So it was a beautiful thing. And so Mum won first prize, and she took me to one of the stalls at the Royal Easter Show, and she had her eye on these dolls on sticks. It was called a doll on a stick, right? And she looked at the dolls, like all of the dolls and all the things, and she said, Elizabeth, you can pick whatever you want from this stall, because we have just won first prize, right? And to Mum's horror, I picked a big plastic spider on an elastic band, right? But she told me that I could have whatever I wanted. So she tells that story to demonstrate that I was not the little girl that she wanted, right? She wanted someone that was prim and proper, and I was not. I wanted a spider. I wanted to hang out in the dirt, all of those things. And so therefore, growing up, I was rejected for who I wanted to be. Mum rejected that part of me. Mum rejected the part of me that wanted to hang out with the boys and have a BMX. You know, I had a pink room, and so I wasn't allowed to change it. So I rebelled by getting purple paint, and I put purple circles all over with a compass all over my walls, right? There was things that I did to try and bring myself out, to allow my identity to come out. But the more I did that, the more I was rejected by my mum, because I wasn't her ideal of what she wanted, right? So I grow up going, I don't belong, and being me means I will be abandoned and neglected, right? Unconsciously, these things imprint into our brain. That to be myself means to be unsafe, because being myself means that people won't appreciate me and value me and validate me, right? So what's yours? What is your version of my story, right? Because we all have one. We all have some version of not belonging, feeling insignificant, not good enough, whatever it was. And this is just this life, right? We've got many lives. You know, the witch wound has been coming up for me a little bit with all the stuff. I've got a lot of friends in America, and the whole Halloween thing that sanguine, is that the way you say it? But anyway, all of the things that just came up about being in being a woman that wasn't allowed to speak her truth, wasn't allowed to stand up tall, wasn't allowed to be confident, wasn't allowed to work with natural products, wasn't allowed to speak a truth. All of those things, they're part of our history as well, right? Because, you know, from a soul lineage, we often come down as women, like as a female for a few different lifetimes before we decide to change over. So a lot of us women have experienced the witch wound, being tortured and killed because of who we authentically were, right? And so that then plays out in this life as well. So all of those things, and I want you to really sit and pause and reflect. What part of me was rejected as a child that's still playing out in my life right now? Because going back to this friend that's just had this experience, right? I know that she was in an abusive relationship prior to this, right? I don't know the ones before, but I do know that she had a very tough relationship and she was by herself for a while. And so then she thought her dreams had come true. This amazing man had all of the things that she wanted, right? And here he was, they got married 2 years ago, and the last 18 months has been cheating on her. Now, I've never experienced having someone cheat on me, right? But I have experienced being in a relationship of emotional neglect, feeling like I have to be someone else other than myself to get love from that person, and trying to appease and heal the relationship, which is all goes into what my relationships were like as a child. So when you haven't cleaned that up, that energy of what it was like beforehand, those things keep playing out, right? Now, this is how powerful we are. You may say, but that's somebody else's behavior. How can I be creating that? We are powerful, powerful, powerful beings, right? We live in an energetic, in an energy, right? Consciousness is energy. Everything is energy. And energy has a particular vibration to it, right? So you've got energy in the whole, right? So if I'm going to bring it into the body, the physical body, science has been able to measure the frequency of the body, right? So a person in a healthy body vibrates around 67 to 78 megahertz, right? But then you isolate one part. For example, you take the liver. The liver vibrates at a different frequency by itself, because now it's an individual within the whole body. So when you're measuring the whole body, there's this particular frequency, but take a little bit of that out, that has its own frequency. So when body parts come together, they then create a particular frequency as a whole. So now, as above, so below, or as below, so above. When we're living in an environment, in an energy that has a particular frequency, right? But then there's these individual parts. This is the dichotomy of life. We're a whole, right? We're a whole society of human beings, right? But at the same time, we're an individual with a name that comes down to experience a certain thing. So now individualize that again. You have a thought or a belief that's now got its own frequency and vibration. Are you getting me? Love for you to put a love heart. Give me some love if you are getting where I'm coming from. So when you're in, you've got a belief, and it's something that was, defined or labeled or decided when you were little. That frequency is now stuck in your unconscious, right? Now, we tend to think that when we're creators, that when you're creating, that you're powerful, and that when you're not creating, you're not powerful. But that's not true. It's actually, we're powerful. Full stop, we're powerful. Whether we're giving our power to ourselves and taking authority, is something that we just talked about in Conscious Creator Circle, my signature program, is self-authority and owning your own power, right? Or whether you're giving that power away to something outside of yourself, whether that be another person, but it could also be a belief, right? It could be the way you've defined yourself. I just put some incense on downstairs and I can smell it, the smoke's coming up. So if you have a made a choice, a belief that I'm not good enough, right? Or I'm not valid, or I'm not accepted, or I don't belong, whatever your belief is from your childhood, if you haven't cleaned that up, if you haven't released and neutralized that, then that's still stuck in your field. And so this is vibrating away, right? Now, we just go, well, here's this little vibration. But as I'm moving my fingers, right? Give you an example. As I'm moving my fingers, that's actually creating movement in the air. And just like, as they say, that a butterfly's wings on one side of the world can create a cyclone on the other side of the world, or a storm, it's the same thing. Every movement or action ripples out into this bigger energy field that we've got, that then creates. And so if you're in a space where you're thinking that you're not good enough, you're not worthy of love, right? Then that ripples out, and you are attracting, law of attraction, you are attracting that energy, so that you're having that experience, because you are a creator. Hands down, doesn't matter whether you believe it or not, we are constantly creating. And so you are creating your reality. And if you've got a vibration in there that says, my creation is that I'm not good enough, you will have everything in your world come up to validate that, for you to see that actually you're not good enough. So your thought creates your reality, and your reality validates your thought. And so the more you think a certain thing, the more you will see it show up in your life. So we want to create good things, right? We want to validate being healthy and loved and, abundant and all of those things. But if you've got something going on back here, then doesn't matter how many affirmations you say, is always going to show up until you clear that out of the way, right? And so it's moving that cycle out of the way, right? This is what law of attraction is that's what I was going to say. I was going to say something. Now, what can happen is, depending on the belief, when you're first starting out on your personal journey, or your spiritual journey, or whatever it might be, just imagine you're in a boat, right? The holes are pretty big, and you can sort of plug them and cover them up, and off you go again. But the longer you've been on it, the more there's these little tiny holes that are a little bit harder to see and experience and realize they're there, but they still sink the boat, right? They can still let water in. And so as you're growing and moving, you may think that you've let go of something, but the cycle can be a lot longer before it comes back, right? So for example, with this woman, it's been 1.5 years before she recognized what was going on, because he was still being loving. He was still sending her flowers. He was, feeling fucking guilty, and so was actually treating her like a goddess. It was only because she saw something come up on his phone, and she decided to look at it, and then found the whole thing. And her whole world has fallen apart, because it's bringing up memories of her last relationship and her childhood. So this is all about self-reflection. What patterns are you aware of that you haven't been able to shift? What are the things that you need to do some work on instead of ignoring, because you know they're there and they're not affecting you right now, right? They're not affecting you right now, so you think that you're good until they do. Until they start influencing you, the future self of you, right? One of the things, we hold on to these beliefs of not being good enough and world beliefs, right, of how things should be. But I remember when I was in the last relationship before I met Tim, there was two, right? But the one that, like, I got married to a German backpacker, right? He wooed me big time. Absolutely gorgeous looking guy, right? And he just kept on and on and on until I finally gave in. And then we got into a relationship and got married pretty soon, right? Within the first 12 months we were married. And he turned into Hitler as soon as we got married, right? A definition for him was marriage meant a certain box. And the box was Elizabeth did absolutely everything, and the children also needed to do everything, and he got to live his life and play his guitar and live the dream, right? And show everyone that his life was perfect. And I went, how the F did I create this again? Like, I just couldn't believe that I'd created it again. And I stayed and I stayed and I stayed until I could work out what that belief was that was holding me back and creating something that wasn't what I wanted in my life, right? What was it that was defining me to be here? And it took me a little while, right? Because I didn't have recoding at the time. It took me, I think, another 2 years to work out what it was. But as soon as I worked out what it was, and being a healer, what it ended up being was that I had to heal him. And so once I cleared that, and one of my magic experiences is that even before Recode, I've been able to clear codes very, very quickly and re-imprint, right? And so one of the things that came up for me was I cleared that thing and I just left the relationship. And I never, ever created something like that again. And I'd had 3 relationships like that, right? So when you clean up the stuff that's getting in the way, that's when you expand, and you open up to what people would consider impossible things, right? Things that look like, how on earth did you do that? How did you meet a guy down the beach and you're a healer with the surname of Paine? My maiden name was Paine, Payne, and his last name is Makepeace. Like, how do you do stuff like that? What people would consider is impossible things. I have an event on, our monthly mixer. It's the last one for the year. I'm not doing one in December. It's called Manifesting Impossible Things. And I'm going to break it all down, ladies. I'm breaking down all of the steps of how to create and manifest impossible things. Things that people would think were impossible, right? Beyond this world. 3 shooting stars that I created. 4.5 centimeter brain tumors completely breezed through. All of the things I want to break down and share with you. Even if you think that you're pretty good at creating now, I bet I can share stuff with you that you that isn't what you were expecting, right? So if you want some impossible things, throw into the chat impossible things and we will send you the link. It's at the end of the month. I am super excited about it because this is my stuff. This is my magic, right? And so I'm really, really looking forward to sharing it with you. So just throw in impossible things and we will send you the link. And I will catch you in the next live. Take care.